All right, get ready for a wild ride. Because in this deep dive, we're tackling analytic idealism.
Oh, it's going to be a fun one.
It is, and we've got a whole stack of lectures and research papers to dig into,
Oh, we do?
all trying to answer this question, what if reality is, well,
What if reality is
more mental than we think?
more in our heads than we think?
Yeah, so imagine like our senses are kind of like, those carefully edited movie trailers
Okay.
where you get these intriguing glimpses,
Okay.
but not the whole picture.
Oh, that's a really good analogy, yeah. Because analytic idealism, it really pushes back against this idea that there's this physical universe like out there totally separate from us observing it.
Right.
It's more like what we think of as the physical world is actually like a representation, a symbolic representation
Okay.
of something that's fundamentally mental.
So it's not that like trees and stars and stuff are imaginary,
Right.
but it's that their existence, it's more like information, like data points in this big universal mind.
Exactly. Think about like a car dashboard
Right.
gives you information about the car, the speed, the fuel level,
Right.
but it's not the car itself.
Right.
So analytic idealism is suggesting our senses are kind of like that dashboard, giving us this like symbolic version of a universe that is at its core mental.
So we're stuck seeing the simplified version.
Yeah, in a way.
And analytic idealism is all about like cracking the code to see what's underneath.
That's a good way to put it.
That's a wild concept.
It is a wild concept.
But what I thought was really interesting is how a lot of these sources bring in like actual scientific evidence to back this up.
Yeah, they do.
We're talking neuroscience. We're talking quantum physics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the heavy hitters.
Like the big guns. Yeah, and I mean, and one of the things it does is it challenges some of our assumptions that we don't even realize we make.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, we tend to think that more brain activity equals
More consciousness.
more consciousness, exactly. But then you have research into psychedelics,
Right.
like LSD, psilocybin.
And that kind of flips that on its head.
It really does, yeah.
So you're telling me that like tripping out actually lowers brain activity.
Yeah.
I always thought it was the opposite.
You would think, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But studies actually show a decrease in brain activity, especially in the areas linked to like self-awareness and personal identity. And yet, these substances are famous for making people's subjective experiences seem more intense, more vivid.
Right. So less brain activity.
Yeah.
But a more, I don't know, more vivid experience of reality.
Exactly.
That's so weird.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It's like our brains are like dimming the lights to reveal this like bigger picture that was always there.
It's a good way to put it, I mean, because it really begs the question then, if consciousness isn't just directly proportional to the amount of brain activity,
Right.
what is it and where does it come from?
Right. There's got to be some other kind of, I don't know, underlying structure or source or something that ties it all together.
And that's where things get really, really interesting, because one of the more compelling pieces of evidence that these sources bring up is comparing the structure of the universe itself to the network structure of the human brain.
Hold on. Are we saying that the universe is structured like a giant brain?
Well, not a brain in the traditional sense,
How
but
about you?
when researchers have analyzed both structures and they're using information theory, which is the same math we use to understand like communication systems, they're finding undeniable similarities.
So the universe is organized like a brain, but not like an actual brain.
Not necessarily a brain as we picture it, no.
Right.
More like the underlying structure, the way it's organized.
Okay, so then what does that even mean if the universe is structured like this massive interconnected web?
Well, it suggests that instead of a universe that just runs on like fixed laws,
Okay.
it might actually be more like a learning universe, one that is constantly adapting and evolving, like kind of like a giant information network almost.
So gravity and electromagnetism and all that,
Yeah.
they're not just set in stone, but something that this universal mind is like constantly tweaking and fine-tuning as it learns.
Yeah, it's this really radical idea that kind of shakes things up, right?
Okay.
Because instead of a universe that's just like on autopilot,
Right.
you can imagine a universe that's actually running these experiments and making these adjustments and learning as it goes.
Okay, I'm starting to see this bigger picture here.
Yeah.
But if we're all like connected to this like massive universal mind,
Right.
how can we experience life as like individuals?
Mhm.
Like, shouldn't we be able to, I don't know, tap into each other's thoughts or something?
Sure, yeah.
Why do I still feel so separate?
Well, and that's where this whole idea of dissociation comes in, which is key to the analytic idealism theory.
Okay.
And the idea isn't that we're like totally cut off from this universal mind,
Right.
but it's more like our individual consciousness is like its own kind of access point.
Okay.
You know, a unique window into this larger consciousness.
So instead of it being like one giant screen,
Right.
it was like we each have our own personal screen that's displaying a different part of what's going on in the universe's mind.
Exactly. We're all tuned into the same underlying reality,
Okay.
but we're experiencing it through these like individual filters, right? Shaping our own unique perspective and our experiences. And like from an evolutionary standpoint, that kind of makes sense.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, imagine if you could just constantly tap into the thoughts and feelings of every single person around you.
That would be a lot.
It would be total sensory overload, right?
Yeah.
We need those boundaries to be able to function as individuals, to process our own experiences, to make our own choices,
Right.
to navigate the world without being completely overwhelmed by this constant stream of like universal consciousness.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like our own personal filters are what make the world make sense.
Exactly.
But so then how does analytic idealism explain like rocks, tables, chairs, like inanimate objects?
Right.
They don't seem very conscious to me.
And that's a common question, right? And it's understandable.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to like a misunderstanding of what analytic idealism is actually suggesting.
Right.
It's not saying that like every physical object has, you know, its own little internal monologue or something.
So my coffee mug isn't having an existential crisis about being a mug.
Not necessarily. No, it's more nuanced than that. It's saying that the universe's fundamental reality is mental,
Right.
but how that manifests in our experience can take on a lot of different forms.
Okay.
It's kind of like saying that, you know, the universal mind is like the source code.
Okay.
And then the physical universe, including those inanimate objects, that's like the program it's running.
Okay.
So just like in a computer program where code can generate all this complexity
Right.
from like simple shapes to like whole virtual worlds, you know,
Right.
the universal mind could give rise to both, you know, conscious beings like us, and then these objects that seem to be, you know, not conscious. But they're all expressions of that same underlying mental reality.
Different expressions of the same source code.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so then how does analytic idealism deal with the idea of like the unconscious mind?
Okay.
Because if everything comes from consciousness,
Right.
how can we have parts of our minds that we're not even aware of?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really leads us to like distinguish between two important concepts: phenomenal consciousness
Okay.
and meta-consciousness.
All right, break that down for me.
So think of phenomenal consciousness as just the actual experience of anything at all.
So,
The feeling of the chair you're sitting on, the sound of my voice, the smell of coffee, just that raw data of your senses, right?
okay.
Meta-consciousness is the awareness of being conscious. It's that inner voice that's kind of like, hey, I'm having this experience right now.
So phenomenal consciousness is like experiencing something without realizing you're experiencing it.
In a way.
And metaconsciousness is like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah,
I'm aware that I'm experiencing this.
exactly. You got it.
Okay.
And the thing is, we're not always meta-conscious of everything that we experience phenomenally.
Okay.
So take breathing, for example.
Right.
You're experiencing it right now, you know, feeling your chest rise and fall.
Yeah.
But were you consciously aware of every single breath you took before I mentioned it?
Now that you mention it, no.
Right. Exactly.
I was breathing, but I wasn't like thinking about it.
Exactly. You weren't meta-conscious of it.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you weren't experiencing it on this phenomenal level.
Like, right.
And so this ties into this idea of the unconscious mind, right?
Oh.
That what we label as unconscious may actually be phenomenal consciousness that we're just not meta-consciously aware of.
Okay.
Like these experiences that are happening in the background, kind of outside our immediate focus.
Like background processes on a computer.
Exactly.
They're running, but I'm not actively like paying attention to them.
Precisely. And so similar to how, you know, those dissociative barriers might prevent us from like fully accessing that universal mind.
Okay.
They might also kind of block our awareness of certain phenomenal experiences, even within our own minds.
Okay.
These barriers filter what we're paying attention to, right?
Yeah.
It kind of shapes our individual experience of the world.
So the unconscious mind isn't like a separate hidden realm.
Right.
It's more like just a part of our consciousness that we're not directly tuned into at the moment.
Exactly. And this has huge implications, right?
Yeah.
For how we understand ourselves and for how we understand, you know, the nature of this reality that we experience.
This is blowing my mind wide open. We went from the universe being a giant thought bubble
Yeah.
to now questioning the very nature of consciousness
Yeah.
and how our minds are interacting with this larger reality.
Absolutely. And we're still not done.
Okay.
Analytic idealism challenges how we understand reality in even more profound ways.
Okay.
How we experience the world, how we find meaning in our lives, even the very nature of life itself.
Okay. I'm on the edge of my seat. Let's do it. So we've gone through this crazy idea that the universe is like this giant mind with our consciousness as being these separate access points,
Yeah.
each with its own little view. But how does that actually change the way we live our lives?
Yeah.
Does analytic idealism have any practical insights?
That's what's so cool about this theory. It's not just some abstract philosophical thing.
Okay.
It gives us this totally new way to understand not only the universe,
Right.
but also the meaning and purpose of our lives.
Yeah.
It really challenges that materialistic view that we're just these isolated beings in a meaningless universe.
So instead of us being just a bunch of atoms,
Right.
we're more like expressions of this universal consciousness.
Exactly.
And each of us is adding our own unique perspective to the bigger picture.
Exactly. Every thought we have, every action, every experience,
Yeah.
it's like a ripple in this huge cosmic pond of consciousness.
I like that. So it's like we're all notes in this giant symphony,
I love that.
each playing our part to create something beautiful and complex.
Beautiful. Yeah. And it leads to this really big question.
Yeah.
If the universe is a form of consciousness,
Yeah.
what is it experiencing? What's its purpose? How do we fit into all of this?
Yeah, what's it thinking about? What's the big idea?
Right. And it's a question humans have been asking for centuries, but
Yeah.
one idea is that maybe the universe is on this journey of self-discovery, constantly learning and evolving through our collective experiences.
So we're not just passengers along for the ride.
Yeah.
We're actively shaping how this universal consciousness evolves.
That's the implication, yeah.
Wow.
That our choices, our actions, even our existence, it all feeds into this evolution of universal consciousness. And that gives our lives a really profound sense of meaning, don't you think?
It does. Yeah,
Yeah.
way more inspiring than feeling like a biological machine.
Right, exactly.
But if this universal consciousness is evolving, why is there so much suffering
Yeah.
in the world? Wouldn't a conscious universe want to minimize pain
You'd
and
think.
create more harmony?
Yeah, the million-dollar question, right.
Right.
And unfortunately, there are no easy answers, but analytic idealism gives us a different way of looking at suffering.
Yeah.
Instead of it being this cosmic accident or punishment,
Right.
maybe suffering has a purpose in the grand scheme of things.
What kind of purpose could suffering possibly have?
Well, think about it this way. Growth often comes from challenges.
Okay.
We need contrast in our lives to really appreciate the good stuff.
Okay.
Without darkness, we don't recognize light.
Right.
Without pain, we can't fully grasp joy.
Okay.
So it's through these difficult experiences that we learn and grow and evolve.
So you're saying that suffering on a personal level, but maybe even on a universal level,
Yeah.
could be a catalyst for growth.
Exactly. It's a tough concept.
Yeah.
But it offers this glimmer of hope,
Yeah.
even when we're in pain or going through hard times.
Yeah.
We can choose to believe that those experiences mean something,
Okay.
that they're contributing to something bigger than ourselves,
Yeah.
pushing us and the universe towards a greater understanding and hopefully more compassion.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Yeah.
Instead of suffering being this purely negative thing, it becomes part of this larger process of growth and evolution.
And if this idea of interconnected consciousness is true, every action we take, no matter how small, sends out these ripples
Okay.
throughout the universe.
So it's not just about us trying to be happy.
Right.
We've also got this responsibility to act in ways that benefit, like the well-being of the whole universe.
Absolutely. Every act of kindness, every moment of joy, every step we take toward deeper understanding,
Yeah.
it all contributes to this evolution of consciousness itself.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is a lot of
What
responsibility.
it makes you realize how connected we all really are.
It really does.
Wow, what a journey this has been. We started off exploring this mind-blowing idea that the universe could be more mind than matter,
Right.
dove into the depths of consciousness itself,
We did.
and ended up with this whole new perspective on the meaning and purpose of our lives.
And that's really what analytic idealism is all about, It's not about having all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about questioning our assumptions, opening up our minds to new possibilities, approaching these mysteries with wonder and curiosity.
It makes you look at the world in a whole new light.
It really does. And maybe the most important takeaway from all of this is that none of us are alone in this universe.
Yeah.
We're all connected to each other, to every living thing, to the very fabric of reality itself.
So as you're going about your day-to-day, really try to be present and appreciate how interconnected everything is. Feel the warmth of the sun, listen to the wind, connect with the joy of a shared smile. These are all expressions of this universal consciousness, reminding us that we're part of something vast and mysterious and infinitely beautiful. And maybe, just maybe, if we open our minds and hearts to that possibility, we can start to see the true nature of reality.